Hi again. Sorry. No stress. Sorted?
You can have mine. I don't mind. Okay. I think we're ready for this session. Is that right? Yeah, excellent. Colleagues, in this panel session, we're going to have the opportunity to hear from three senior library leaders. We have Ms. Ellen Tise, who's the Senior Director at Stellenbosch University Library and Information Services. We have Dr. Shirlene Neerputh, who is the Director of the University at the Western Cape and their library services. And online, we have Professor Maria Frahm-Arp, Executive Director of the University of Johannesburg Library. So I'm going to ask them to build on some of the themes that we've heard at the conference, and I'm sure they'll pick up on much of what we've already heard over the last few days. And to structure this, I have 4 questions, and I'm going to ask them each to share their thoughts on these. I think you've heard quite enough from me today, so I'm not intending to do any more introductions. I'm intending to jump straight in, and I'll rotate these questions as we go along. I'm going to be a bit strict on time, because what I'd like to do is to make sure that I give time for the audience to ask questions as well. And we would like to bring Layla in at that point as well, so people have the opportunity to question Layla on the things that the lovely stuff that we heard. I say lovely stuff, the very interesting stuff that we've heard from her today as well. So my first question to all panelists, but I'll ask Ellen first, is to share with us your experiences as library leaders during this time of disruption. And in the remarks, I'd like them to tell us about how you've had to adapt your management strategy and style during the disruption, and what challenges you faced in managing your teams, as well as the behaviours you've had to unlearn and relearn to lead. So there's an awful lot there, Ellen. Would you like to start us off?
Yes, thank you, Kate, and good morning to everybody. Yes, we have heard this morning, as well as over the last few days, quite a bit about the impact of COVID-19. So I'm not going to repeat some of those, but just to mention that in the case of Stellenbosch University, in terms of, if I have to say, what has been my experience and so on, is just that at the beginning I had no idea what we were going to do and what impact this will have. And I recall we have actually sent out our first communication, and that was a message to the deans of the faculties on the 17th of March, when we anticipated that there probably will be a national lockdown, where we have indicated to the deans that at that point in time that all libraries of the SU Library and Information Service will follow vacation hours. So at that point in time, we just reduced our hours to vacation hours. We immediately started making an assessment of, should there be a national lockdown, who of the staff will be able to work from home and who will not be able to work from home. And at that point in time, we realized there's going to have to be a change in the way we were going to manage things, the change in the way that we're going to be able to, that we will have to communicate, a change in the way in which the management staff will have to operate. And then on the following that, and I think it was just before the lockdown as well, on the 20th of March, we have again, no, sorry, that was also, we were preparing for that. We have had the following announcement on SharePoint to the staff, confirming what our library's hours will be. And then we also said that library services will continue as normal during the above hours. More information will be communicated. Staff who display symptoms that may point to possible COVID-19 infection are advised to self-isolate and not come to work. Please follow the advised procedures. We are awaiting advice from the SU Human Resources Division about leave arrangements, etc. Strict cleaning protocols are being put in place in the library. We advise staff to take note of advice available in the public domain about protecting themselves and preventing the spread of the virus. And then we had lots campus health and so on and so on. But what we realized right from the start is that we had to assure staff that, first of all, that from the library side, that we will do everything to ensure that they are safe and the safety of the students. From the library side, we've made hand sanitizers available at strategic points, and a strict cleaning regime has been rolled out. We urge staff to take note of measures that should be taken to prevent the spread of the virus. The measures that we are putting in place are to ensure the well-being of staff, to limit the spread of COVID-19, and to treat all staff, and this was something that we were very, very clear on. We want to treat all staff fairly and equally, while continuing the function as our function as a library service. The situation will be assessed regularly. Should it change, new arrangements will be communicated to staff. And I think for me, that was the crux. That was the way that we realized that we're going to have to manage this. First of all, we realized that no, we were not informed enough of what was going on, but we had to do that. Secondly, that it was going to be critical that there's joint decision making. I do believe that we've always have a collaborative team spirit and the way that we have functioned, but it had become critical that everybody had to be aware what was going on. And as soon as we as a senior management team had made a decision, that had to be communicated to the staff, because they all wanted to know what was going to happen. And in terms of the challenges, first of all, I think there were many that we had to face. And the key thing, again, going back to the well-being, was that we felt it was important that everybody and staff members had to know, and they had to be assured that they are not alone, that we're in this together. It is not different from the rector, from the president. Everybody will be affected in the same way. And how we're going to do this, that we had to accept the limitations, that there was, not all staff would have been able to work from home. I think perhaps, and this is just the last two comments at this point in time that I would like to make, is that I didn't realize how important it was going to be that we would have to increase the level of trust amongst the team, amongst the staff, that we had no idea, we didn't know at that point in time, the background, the circumstances of the staff. We only knew who had computers, who had data to be able to work from home, what they were going to do it, how they're going to handle it. We had no idea. And that was one of the things that I think had helped us in order to say, increase the trust level that we had to do. And I think I'll stop at this point in time, and I'll, obviously later on say a little bit more. Thank you, Kate.
That's brilliant. Thank you very, very much, Alan. So I think the same question actually going to Shirlene. In particular, I think really the focus on the behaviours and the strategy that you adopt would be very interesting to hear about.
Okay, good day, colleagues. And it's lovely to be in a hybrid environment. Thank you to Stellenbosch. I think in the University of the Western Cape, when we looked at the higher education terrain across the last 7 years, in South Africa, we've had the volatile university, higher education terrain, and all library directors, I think, had some element of understanding of anything can happen anytime, and libraries were like the target. But I want to say, in terms of the University of the Western Cape, I was also, 5 years back, I was a new director there, and so we were kind of a little bit more fortunate in light of the change management. So I had to institute a change management strategy because I had to do a whole new staff realignment to the institution's IOP. And so in reflection, I think the library leadership was in a better space, and the team was in a better space because we had undergone this emotional intelligence of the change management process. And so we were very panicked, and the whole world was panicked, and everybody thought they're going to die. And so it was like a lot of complexities added to that. But what had taken us and driven us through is this whole concept of the emotional intelligence in change management and how to take responsibility for our own self-management, our own self-awareness. So in terms of the leadership, I also looked to the institutional response. And as you hear all the talks, there was very little light in terms of what do we do as library directors for giving out an institutional instruction. One of the critical things in my leadership is I just took the easy one. I just took the university's logo, which was from hope to action. And I said, listen, we need to be hopeful. Let's put positivism in this. We will overcome this. We are stronger than that. And I took the logo and I made it work for the team. I made it work for the leadership. And in light with that, like Ellen was saying, staff, the mental health, and being very aware of, your own self. If you have like the slightest cough, how well do you know your body to cope with this virus and to cope with the situation? And so if you were sick, for instance, you must be very aware now, take the necessary precautions, go to the doctor, whatever the case may be. But it was COVID, and nobody knew at that time what's going to happen. But the other very important thing that happened during COVID is we needed to be together. And when we did the staff realignment, quickly staff realized we needed to have trust. And the one very last thing I had in our last year in function, even during COVID, against the wishes of the finance director, but I went ahead and did it, and I'm thankful I did it because it brought the team together. It made the team realize that we need to have empathy, understanding, and we need to work together as a team. And this is what brought us all together to stand in terms of our service orientation, to deliver on what we can, the best we can. The other very important thing was access to resources. And as library directors, we had to now provide data, and data was the secretive thing in higher education, access to laptops and computers. But immediately I said, we release all the resources because I don't want it sitting there. We need to give people access to resources. And the other very critical thing that happened in South African higher education was the zero-rated data, which I think Leila touched on, it was not government's institution, it was not government's call, but institutions were pressurized to make sure that they give access to the students so that they could save the academic year. And the one very critical thing about library leadership during this panicked, volatile environment was, how do we save the academic year? How do we transit? And we were so fortunate in terms of libraries. Like libraries around the world lead in terms of cloud computing, online access. We've been thinking of e-strategies from 5 years back. If only people or government or institutions listened, and so we would have been in a better space. But we did. I think as libraries, academic libraries and public libraries, we were the first to deliver on online access to resources. I think the one thing I would say is what I needed to unlearn is do not stick to the plan. Make your flexible choices, engage your teams. And make sure you listen. I think the first primary thing is let's listen to what is needed so that we could move towards service orientation, to excellence in terms of how best we support our students, our academics, postgraduates, but also my staff was very important in it. And librarians, amazing at just coming to build together, sticking together, collaborating, and librarians I acknowledge and I honor all of the librarians that have actually saved many, many South African students and other students' lives just by being there.
That's great. And Maria, I can see you nodding all the way through this and smiling. So could we hear from you on this now, please?
Yes, I don't want to repeat what Ellen and Shirley have said. I think for me, one of the most wonderful things about COVID, if I can start on a positive note, was the heightened trust. We really did move away from micromanaging people to trusting them. And I think that is something I hope we're going to take forward. In the first year of COVID, we had a lot of quick, agile executive team meetings and really encouraged everybody in their different divisions to do the same. So picking up on what my two colleagues have said, keeping everybody informed and making collaborative decisions, because there wasn't a roadmap. We, in many ways, were making it up as we were going along. And I really appreciated how much the teams came together. So echoing what the colleagues have said, came together, brought in their perspectives from the different divisions, and really helped us to brainstorm every day how to improve what we were doing. At the University of Johannesburg, we as librarians literally went from teaching mainly in a face-to-face environment on the Friday, and by the following Tuesday, we were teaching online. Why I mention this is because the academic staff had a 6-week break in which they could plan their lessons, to get their lessons going in an online environment. whereas the librarians basically had a weekend. And the staff were just amazing. Amazing how we showed the rest of the university, so picking up on what Shirley was saying, how you can do it, how online teaching and learning is really very exciting and possible. For me, compassion and acknowledging trauma has probably been the biggest challenge. And we are now going into our KPI season, or we're in our KPI season. And one of the things that I don't think we as an institution at UJ have taken into account enough is the high level of trauma that many people have suffered over the last 18 months. I did a workshop yesterday for staff at UJ, and 68% of the people who joined the workshop had experienced the death of a close family member. That's not including friends that are close to you, but family members. And many people have suffered multiple deaths in their families. And I think that that is the sort of unspoken trauma that so many people are going through. Parallel to this is the life-changing event of having COVID. Many of our staff who had COVID were very seriously ill with it. And so for them, it was a bit of a life-changing experience as they lay there in an ICU, hoping that they would survive. Other people have had to deal with long COVID. And so for me, the big change in leadership has been how to lead with compassion, to listen to people, and to encourage people to keep going. So we've actually been spending a little bit of time thinking about how to lead a staff who are grieving. And one of the things that I found quite disturbing is how grief is really the silent taboo in the workplace. We don't talk about grief. And there's actually very little written about how to lead a workforce that are traumatized or grieving. Most of the literature on leadership and management is the rah-rah stuff. 7 habits for highly effective people, 30 ways to become more productive, etc., etc. So I think I'm going to leave it at that point.
Gosh, thank you. That was incredibly powerful. And thank you to all 3 speakers. I think we probably just need to take a short breath after that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to nip into technology. And we're going to think about that. I'm going to ask you to just think of 1 or 2 things to say in this respect, because I recognise that time is limited. But the question, which I'm going to put to Shirlene first, is technology has played a critical role in ensuring that universities and academic libraries remain operational. So what do you see as the role of technology in a post-COVID world? To what extent do you think the use of things such as AI, robotics, and other technologies will be accelerated after this period?
Thank you. I think in terms of technology, there is no going back, whether we like it or not. It is something that we need to embrace. Libraries have always been embracing technologies and looking at new technologies and how to make it work. But what's really critical is we don't need a single person to have a single skill. We need to come together, we need to collaborate, to partner together. And the institutions that we work in is pretty abundant in terms of technology, the skills, the knowledge, the resources. We just need to harness this together and build together. We need to be upfront and say we need technology to make something easier. For example, I always am like I like the smart technologies, the smart city, but we need to be living it now. We need to bring it home. COVID has taught us that we have to do things better, we have to do things smarter, and we don't need to have a skill set. We can collaborate. you've been hearing about makerspaces. Why not the librarians get together? And I know we can build powerful, ICT and to develop our resources. The one big thing, though, is we do need to be interoperable. We need to bring in all the data analytics and all of the machine learning and pull it together in the library so that we produce these reports. We have the capabilities to do so much more. I always say to my team, ICT, in the days of, the past of libraries as a standalone is gone. You are now underpinning every service from acquisitions to clients to data to even cloud computing. And I do want to say here, we have the expertise of the vendors. I know EBSCO is here and Sabinet and all of we have that expertise. We need to bring it into our libraries, embrace it, and work with it so that we become a smart library of the future. And we don't need to struggle with these things. We are not talking to each other, and that's what ICT can do, is create the seamless interaction, the interoperability, and leverage smarter library services, which would also make us more skilled, more embedded in our approaches. And so we have, I think we have smarter ways of working, and what the COVID has done is that it has fast-tracked that. So for me, online services is something that we need to embrace and to move towards. But more than just online services, we need to really see the usage, the statistics, they analyze, looking at the analytics, and bring that towards the university's vision and mission, bring it home to assist the academics, assist the postgraduates. These are what are the things that can speed up your academic services, your academic success. So things like that, I think in ICT, we no longer need to look at it in terms of a silo. It is embedded, and we need to look and work with it towards embedded approaches. In terms of ILO. So for one, I think the university on the web, how do we make it smarter? How do we make it better? And look at all these services. So the one thing that we did immediately is, as UWC, is we spruce up the website, make it more contactable, make it interactive, and interaction today is what it is. And we need to have fun in it. We need to build the fun component. We need to have, let our students play and engage. So that for me is very critical in terms of ICT.
That's great. Thank you very much. It's very comprehensive. I'm going to move to Maria now. You can probably see a pattern in the way I'm going around the panel. But Maria, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yes, I would. So what we are very excited about is moving to the VR space, virtual reality. And we've been fortunate to be able to raise funding to set up virtual reality rooms in our libraries. And I think one of the exciting things going forward is going to be that we're not only going to be thinking about technologies in new ways, but also thinking about our space in new ways. And so we foresee over the next couple of years that we as librarians are really going to be teaching academics how to use a lot of technology in teaching and learning, starting with our maker space and now moving into our virtual reality rooms. Then for us, one of the things that has been so exciting about technology has been how it has freed up librarians to be able to do more of the really interesting things. So, a lot of us really like helping postgraduate students and undergraduate students when they come with the meaty questions. And we set up a chatbot before we went into lockdown. And the chatbot is now really dealing with all the sort of easy queries that you get from students that are all very routine. And our chatbot keeps on learning new things, so it can deal with more and more complex questions. And one of the things this has done is freed up the time of general librarians and research and learning commons librarians to be more involved in our online teaching, which they've really enjoyed. One of the other technologies that has been really exciting has been that of big data. And we've been able to set up a business intelligence system. It's taken 2 years to really get this right, because we have so many different systems at UJ which all need to speak to each other. But we can now get down to the nitty-gritty of students in a particular module. How are they using the library resources? What are their marks and their throughput rates like? And this is enabling us to make very different decisions about our purchasing and where we are putting our resources and time going forward. And we are working much more closely with our academic development department at the university that help with modules where the throughput rate is really quite low. And that kind of work has been very exciting for us. And the last thing is just to pick up on these conversations of technology and researchers. And we are finding ourselves doing a whole lot of teaching to researchers around how to use all the amazing products that are out there to see how their research is being taken up by scholars, to start to understand how to link into data sets that are on varying different repositories, and to see how they can use data to see where are networks that they could link into in other parts of the world. And all of this for us has been incredibly exciting, and we really feel as though we are part of the broader project of the university in a whole variety of new ways.
That's really inspiring. Great to hear. Ellen, at Stellenbosch.
Yes, you've heard already quite a bit from Stellenbosch, of course, during the symposium. My quick response to this is, first of all, I don't think we need to wait for post-COVID-19. The use of technology has accelerated like nothing else in the last 2 years already. And as we know, it's been said before, when we went into lockdown here, our message to the university was, the agility of the library. We've been doing this for the last 20 years. 95% of our resources are already digitally. They have 24 hours. The library has already been virtual and access to the library 24 hours for a number of years. In fact, the university adopted that for its institutional planning forum in the beginning of this year about agility. And I think, I found that we have actually used the pandemic. It's one big advantage to exactly do, and we've done even more jumps in a short period of time. So in our case, for example, we have implemented during the pandemic last year, applied for strategic funding, implemented Leganto because we realize how critical that is in terms of our integrating it in our Sun Learn system. We're in the process of adding to our makerspace a data visualization room. We have already also adopted what we're going to do in terms of a dashboard for the library, and a lot of the stuff that we've actually already heard. We have, and as I said, I think if I'm actually afraid when Deline, Deputy Director, Academic Services, when we have our one-on-one meetings, because I know she's going to ask another thing to add to LibCal or to some of the LibCal products. Of course, we already had the booking system in place before COVID. The university, the rest of the library already has a system. Go and find out what they're doing. So every month, Deline wants to add another module. So all the new things, and I just said, yes, we must just continue to push for this. There's no way. We're not going to go back. So the more we can actually apply this, I think what I've learned and heard from Isak, particularly his presentation, and also the other presentations, I have to say, and I have to admit, I didn't even, I didn't realize, as he said, we already have so many, already in our services, robots and robotics. And of course, with AI, and I think some of the ideas that we actually heard, that we've had it. We must just showcase it. We must actually show we already have this in the library, and continue to do so. So yes, I think I would like just to add one more thing to what Maria had said. And that would be my only concern, and I think Isak also said that in his case. It's no point, we shouldn't do this and add this onto, and then we keep everything as it has been up till now. So unless it's going to drastically change the way, because if we keep the staff that we have, if we keep having them to do the functions that we're doing, and we want to add this on, then I think then we're going to waste a lot of time and money. So really, if we want to be smart libraries, if we technology that we have and the trend setting and that what we've done over many, many years, then we can not necessarily reduce the staff, but utilize the staff to do the other things where they now have to directly do more of the work with the students instead of having to answer or go collect material for them and do all of that stuff when we can use the technology to do that. And we will even improve and enhance the value that we offer to our universities and to our students.
That's absolutely super. And that takes me very nicely into the next question. So we've spoken about colleagues, we've spoken about IT. We've got 2 more areas to cover and time for questions, so we're really going to have to be speedy here. But the next spot that we wanted to touch on were students and thinking really in terms of information literacy. We've talked a lot over the last couple of days about differentiating between fake news and credible information, the kind of work that people have put in, the incredible work that the faculty librarians have done. And I'm curious to understand to what extent universities continued providing information and digital literacy training during the period, but more importantly, perhaps, what the response of the students was to that training itself. And if I could start with Maria.
Thank you. So we've been very involved in digital literacy. We've worked very closely with a variety of different departments and varying different faculties. And we've run a whole lot of different webinars. For us, this has really been one of the areas that we think is critically important for young people in a very digital age. And because everybody knows exactly what digital literacy is about, I'm not going to talk about this in any great detail. But what we're very excited about is that at the beginning of next year, we're going to launch an online digital literacy game that teaches students about digital literacy. And it's been a wonderful experience learning more and more about gaming in teaching and learning, and actually how to develop games. And we've had all sorts of task teams and focus groups that we've worked with. And so we're excited about that for next year. But one of the things I think is actually very critical is to look at student reintegration next year. At UJ, we are going to have third-year students that will arrive on campus next year, and they've never been on campus before. They haven't developed friendships in the way that you would if you were on campus, and they've been learning in an online environment for 2 years. And so at the moment, we are doing a lot of thinking around how to help students reintegrate next year, because it's going to be another major shift in their way of studying and being. And linked to this is something I don't think we've given enough attention to, and that is what has been the psychosocial impact of learning in an online environment. One of the key things about university is that you learn to work with people from a whole variety of different backgrounds. And our students haven't had that experience. So at the moment, we are doing a lot of forward looking and trying to hear where students are at the moment. And because of time, I think I'm just going to end there.
That's great. Thank you. And Ellen?
Yes, as I've said, we have done, I think it was in the middle of last year, a mini survey. The university did many surveys, and we realized, although we have have all these resources, although we know the students can access it, although the university provided data, laptops and all of that, but we still wanted to make sure, are we on the right track? Do we actually really know what exactly the students, what are they struggling with, so that we can try and focus specifically on those. And that really helped us. It helped us to develop some of the new LIP guides. It helped us to develop 1 or 2 new training courses specifically. The faculty librarians and our e-learning team came up with a data light options, for knowing that some of our students still would be struggling with data. And so there were all of those things that actually happened. But and I'd just like to give in this case some of our statistics and this is just for 2020. We accelerated our offering of our e-learning training. For example, our library guides were accessed 97,000 times more in 2019 than from 2019 to 2020. The same happened with many of our workshops, undergrads, postgraduates, all of them had seen this increase. Workshop attendance was a phenomenal 117% growth that we've seen from 2019 to 2020. Our Ask a Librarian frequently asked questions web pages, there was an increase of 31.5%. Our e-journals and data users downloaded 2,340,887 full-text articles just from the top 25 databases alone, of which we have 119. Our off-campus usage surge request increased dramatically from 61,765,504 in 2019 to 71,506,885 in 2020. I remember Elsevier told us in terms of the increase of our usage in Science Direct. So we know that the value that we were able to bring, and somebody said it, I think the DVC research said it in his introduction yesterday in his welcome, and Lorraine Harricom said it. I don't think that the universities would have been able to achieve the success and being able to complete the academic year in 2020 if it was not for the heroic contribution by the libraries. When the university, the first time they were told a third of the students can come back, postgraduate students, at Stellenbosch University, the first thing that the students said, they would like the library to be open. And we had no choice. And we didn't say, no, this and this and that and that and that. We immediately, how are we going to get this to happen? The students want us back. One of the challenges that I had is that the staff wanted to go back, and I had to say, every day again there was a query, a request from the lead, so-and-so have to go. The users want this information. And I had to say, we can't, can we just do this? But just one last comment from a student in terms of how the students responded to it. We had a PhD student, Mr. James Adam, he said, the library does an amazing job. I used to think the library was dying until I came to SU. The webinars during Research Week were a clear indication of the world-class education we get at SU. And for that.
Well, you can't see what Maria just did, but she just applauded you. And Shirlene, what would you like to say?
I think my colleagues have covered most of it, but from the UWC perspective, what we have done is we've engaged a digital librarian. He's sitting here in the audience today. That was 2 years that we had put in that plan. But what I personally would like to see, since libraries are lifelong, institutions, lifelong learning institutions, I would like to see the term literacies evaporate to become information fluencies. And now we're living in, every higher education institution has now embraced digital universities. So we need to be responding to the times. We need to be relevant. We need, as a library, to move in that direction where we're saying, as information fluency, we develop and integrate those programs in our curriculum. But more than that, we look towards also enhancing all the new technologies like live media streaming, and the online platforms, cloud computing, and all of that we build into the library digital fluency programs. I was asked to speak or give a presentation criticizing the UWC curriculum and looking at transformation in the curriculum. And one of the critical factors the pandemic has highlighted and brought together, in a time where we all pushing save the academic year, promote student success. And now is the best time ever for the library to become a part of the academic program, in a totalistic or holistic way. So for me, transformation of the curriculum can never happen without the library, without the resources. And built into all of that is our special collections, the Cornelian, the resources. And we as librarians have the insight, the knowledge, and the ability to make vast input into curriculum to help the academic and the students so that there is a transformation happening at the classroom level. So for me, in terms of digital literacies and all that, we are doing a fantastic job, but there is huge opportunity that the pandemic has raised in terms of us building integrated, holistic curriculum. And we can use the online platforms to do all of that. So embedding our programs, yes, but not making sure that we are having fun with that. We're also addressing some of the critical issues, the critical citizenry, the how students that struggle, and what is it that we need to respond to the students that struggle? Academics are there, but they're also not there. So there's a collaborator in that online classroom in the space. And for years and years, the librarian was always seen as the friend or the colleague or the peer person for students. So we have that leverage, I think.
Fantastic. I'm just going to check on time because I think I'm right in saying that this session is going to go on until 1:45. Looking to Marie, it's not. Do we have to finish at 10:30? 10. Sorry? 10 minutes. Okay. Right. In which case, I'm going to ignore the last question because I can see that we've got lots of questions coming up on the screen.
But if you don't mind, just if I could just add in terms of the, what I had hoped to say and I was actually just going to read a quote from, the question was around, how do we see the future and what's going to happen? And if there's one thing that I think, and if I could use this as sort of as a summary, that we're going to have to continue to rethink, reposition, and reshape our services and our research sources in a post-COVID-19. But I actually just want to read this quote from Cox and Felix, which we had in our annual report for 2020. It is difficult to predict how academic life will change after COVID-19. But one thing is certain, libraries will continue to grow and change to meet the needs of their patrons. The current environments provide an opportunity to scale up and diversify our services, solving university-wide problems and making clear our business isn't just books, it is about learning and research through the development of new systems, collaborations, and distribution methods, both physical and virtual. We can successfully connect students and faculties in ways that ensure their success and place the academic library at the center of the academic enterprise.
That's a lovely quote. Thank you. So what I'm hearing lots of things beginning with C. I'm hearing collaboration, I'm hearing care, I'm hearing collegiality, connections, creativity. And I'm also seeing a huge amount of engagement, I think, from people online, and I'm guessing in the audience as well. So would you be comfortable if I move to questions at this point? Yeah? Okay. In which case, I'm going to start with the first one that's online, which is what challenges did the library directors experience during lockdown with staff who work with predominantly print resources, who couldn't do online work, and going forwards into the world of e-resources, what kind of reskilling in technology that could be used in these areas? So maybe if I go to Maria first.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. We anticipated that lockdown would probably be for quite a while. And so what we did before we went into lockdown was we put together what we called a reading program. And this was something that staff could do because we printed out a whole lot of articles, etc. And so staff that were working mainly in print environments and therefore, in inverted commas, didn't have stuff to do online, spent a lot of time doing these readings and thinking about their different environments and how their environments may be changing going forward. They worked together with our wonderful campus librarians, and they had a whole variety of WhatsApp groups. And we also had guided readings. So in other words, you would do a reading, and then there were 3 or 4 critical questions to help you understand and work through the reading. And people did this in the WhatsApp environment. After 3 months, our staff working in the WhatsApp environment came together and really started to reimagine what a circulation desk will look like, what the work of shelvers is going to be, and what the work of people working with hard copy monographs are going to be. And we don't have the time to talk about it now, but they've really come up with some very exciting things. And by the time we got to sort of August of lockdown, we in the library were able to ensure that everybody had a device. And we then put in place a whole series of workshops for these staff to learn about the rest of the work that was going on in the library, so that when they weren't actually in the library, they were busy learning, and they've now this year become much more integrated into work that they didn't do before, which picks up on what Ellen was saying about people changing their roles. And because we had started to do that before lockdown, we had already changed about 20 different positions. We already had this culture of change. And it's been very exciting to see how people themselves are organically changing their jobs and their role in the library.
That's really interesting. Thank you. We've got quite a few questions, so I think if you don't mind, I'm going to ask different questions to different people. And we also should include Leila as well, because we did say that after your session we would come to questions as well. So don't forget if you have a question for Leila. I think I'm right from the hand gestures at the back that we're going just for another 5 minutes. Is that right? I think so. Sorry, you're behind a camera, Marie, but I think so. So I'm going to direct the next one to Ellen, because Ellen spoke about trust. And I'm interested online as to what methods were used by library directors to build trust without micromanaging while working online.
Yes, I think the main thing was we had to realize once we were off campus, particularly for the period that we worked predominantly from home, that there was no other option, really, in terms of that you're going to have to trust what, you know, that people have a time. But we have built in some guidelines. Some of our communication, we have clearly indicated that those staff who are working from home, that you have to work your normal working hours, that you are expected to be available at any point in time should we want to contact you. I'm also trying to think that there was another thing that we had to do. All managers, they have had to set up also working groups, many of them, the managers, also for even those staff who were not able to work from home, they regularly checked in with them also. They had to make sure that in some cases that they had to forward communication to them. And then in addition to that, we have also set up a regular reporting, and we called it kind of a productivity. Some divisions already had that before COVID, and now it was required. So all senior managers, we kept it on a spreadsheet on SharePoint. Staff had to submit their activities in terms of what they've done. And so through that, of course, we could see, of course, there were concerns. In some cases, some staff did struggle to work from home. Some staff, you know, again, accelerated. They actually worked much better from home, where they would have probably, when they were at the office, walk around and talk too much. Of course, they didn't have to walk around and talk about, so they, at home. And I think for me, where the trust came in, what we were trying to build was about that each staff member has to take responsibility. It is responsibility in terms of the COVID situation, and that we are not going to, we can't do that. So the responsibility is on you. You have to take responsibility for that. There's no other way that we can. And I think through that, that is how we've been able, and the results, as I said, in some cases, really, some staff really flourished. And in terms of the feedback that we were getting from many of our users, et cetera, it was quite clear that staff were able to do that without us necessarily having to go around each person's house and check how you're actually at your desk, or putting cameras to see if you are actually working. There was no need for that.
Yes, please do.
Say something. I took an approach of saying to the teams, okay, you tell me what you're going to do. And so they took responsibility and ownership of the projects or whatever. So they came up with their own ideas. And some of the times, people that were, you know, could do very well on the social media, they said, I would like to do social. So I think then it built trust, and you just, I left them to run with those kind of things. But obviously, there had to be some kind of evaluation. So they did some reports and stuff like that. But I think when you devolve the ownership and you allow people to say, to own the projects or the task or whatever, they become really involved. And then trust, it builds trust.
Brilliant. Are there any questions in the room? I'm conscious that I'm looking at a screen and not looking at the people that we have here. Does anybody like to ask? Probably we just have time for just one question, I think. Or are we what's standing between you and your lunch? No. It's gentleman here.
Nobody will ask a question. I've been asked not to talk so much. One question that I just answered about trust, I had it here about, I think, don't buy a pig in a pork. I think you have that kind of say. Trust but verify the worthiness, the trustworthiness. And I'm glad that Ellen has responded to that fairly well. We use, in our university, we use this Google Doc, and each time, every day, I account for what I'm doing in terms of teaching, research, and what are the responsibilities. And I find it going on very well because I've got come to a diary of what I do, which I think is a good thing. The question that I want to ask, the second one is, to all of you, is capacity building and recruitment. I know that you don't have all of your member of staff cannot do everything that is required now. So what is your recruitment strategy? Do you think recruitment strategy and capacity building strategy, can you just respond to that? Do you have to hire new staff members to do what you need to do now, or do you have to pay more attention to capacity building of the people that you have, like staff development, which I think also goes to students that you mentioned, because students, even ourselves staff, student staff and your own staff, you've got to do something about them. So I wanted to comment about that. Then the last one is about best practice. In South Africa, we are very lucky that we have Chelsea, where librarians, directors meet. How do you share best practice as part of partnership collaboration? Because our libraries are doing a wonderful job. So I just wanted you to comment on that as well. Thanks.
That's an awful lot to get through, and we are very short of time. Maybe we could focus on the last part of that.
Well, I was going to say maybe you would like to respond to the first one. Yes, yeah, I probably don't think we have that much time. Well, as you say, Chelsea is there. They are doing quite a bit of work in terms of trying to build capacity, but then also to share best practices. I don't think we've done well enough, good enough. I think the last year, of course, was very much each institution did focus on what they were doing. I asked the question for the DVC Learning and Teaching the other day from UCT, because we could see that, you know, we were sort of like, what can we do in our own institutions in order to deal with that? But yes, Dennis, I do think, well, this is the chair of Chelsea, but I do think there are communities of practice in some of the regions, as well as in Chelsea, where we have identified certain things where we can share those best practices. And I think in this case, we also have to look at some of our partner universities also in other countries with whom we also work quite a lot and where we can share those practices.
So, maybe I can respond as well. So in terms of Chelsea, I think the priority was in our own institutions. And so a lot of that work, and we allowed the space for library directors to actually engage and bring up to speed and to actually address all their own internal institutional challenges. But going forth, I think there is opportunity for greater collaboration, greater sharing. But equally, there was a lot of webinars being shared around the pandemic, around training, around what do we do, how do we operationalize a business continuity plans, and then you could just take that and create. I believe we have very intelligent and smart library directors and librarians, and so people engaged in that. But going forth, I think we need to strengthen the collaboration and perhaps invite even like international partners to look at what are the best practices and how do we deal with it. But having said that, I also think that as South African institution, we have our own context to respond to. So that's something that we could take, the best practices, but we're going to make it relevant and work for our own South African context.
Thank you. And Maria, would you like to add anything?
No, I think the colleagues have really covered it all. Just around capacity building, I think this is one of the exciting areas going forward. And one of the things we've really been encouraging is for people to think about what is it that they do really well and they like doing, and to build more on that. We can't all be brilliant and experts in everything. And when we start to look at our different strengths, we find that we are able to cover all the areas that we need to as a library, but with each person being able to flourish because they do what they're really good at doing and develop that better.
Thank you. So, folks, I think we need to bring this to a close because I'm conscious that time is short and we have more things to hear about this afternoon. I'd like to thank all our speakers today and also like to thank Leila again properly because we haven't had a chance to do that. So thank you very much, panel. If you could join with me in showing our appreciation. A little bit of housekeeping. When we go over to the restaurant, you need to remember what it is that you ordered for your main course. And then as you go into the restaurant, you need to pick up a card that says that thing on that card and take it to the restaurant with you. That way, we have process fixed the restaurant and things will work smoothly for us. Thank you, colleagues. It says that thing on that card and take it to the restaurant with you. That way, we have process fixed the restaurant and things will work smoothly for us. Thank you, colleagues. It says that